This is the new baptistmessage.com. We have a few additional features, some different sections here on the home page. Most of this is controlled by selecting categories for posts so that they show up in the right place here on the page. And we're going to walk through which categories those are and how to make sure that those categories are selected. So we have up here at the top, we have baptisms. That's not controlled by categories. It's a different system. We'll take a look at that here in a bit. We have a news ticker here that scrolls stories through here that have been selected. That is done through a category. We have our featured slide here, and that's done through a category. And then we have our little scrolling section. We have facts, figures, and finds, and culture and commentary over here. And they are controlled through categories, and we have a must-read section here on the home page, and that is also controlled through categories. So those are most of the new components of the website, and like we say, it's just through categories. You can go through and look at all the categories here under post categories, but most of the time you're going to be interacting with them when you create a new post. And so you come in here, you say that it's a new post just like you always would, and you add your story or whatever other content. And then when you come over here to categories, you just got to be sure that you select the categories that are needed for making things show up over here. So we have our feature can show up here. Makes it so it shows up here within this slideshow. And then we have our facts, figures, and finds, which is this section right here. And we select that and it will show up in that spot there. Culture and commentary shows up in culture and commentary. Carousel shows up under this little carousel here. We have must read, and it shows up under must read. And we have news ticker, and it shows up for the news ticker. If you select those different categories, then it would show up under all the places here on the home page. You can also select the categories just like you always would for the other parts of the home page. Louisiana, or editorial, global, so forth. Any of those things that you want to select, you can select, and they will show up wherever you want them to show up then on that basis. You need to be sure that as you're going through this, that you are setting a featured image just like you always would, but it's especially important for this slideshow here. If you want to make something be a part of this featured slideshow here, then you need to have an image that will work for that. And so ideally, the images you have would be of higher quality for that part there. They don't have to be. It will take a smaller image and it will stretch it out to make it fit. But obviously, if you take a small image and stretch it out and make it fit, that's not going to look as good. That's not going to be quite the same. So you want to have good images. Not only do you want to have good images, you want to have images that have been saved in the correct format and have been optimized. Sometimes we've had some issues, and right now we do as well, where some of the photos that are being used are 300 dpi, which is great for print, but it means that it's sized wrong for the web. And so you have an overly large file that is not adding any quality with its additional size. And so right now, then when we run baptistmessage.com to check out the speed at which it loads, then we get time. It's probably going to be around 6 seconds. Somewhere around there is where it normally ends up being. We got 5.41 seconds here, which isn't terrible. It's 6.2 megabytes. It's not good to have a page of that size. A quarter of that size is really what we would like to have. And a load time of a quarter of that time is also about what we would like to have. You notice here it says that it's faster than 30% of tested sites. And that's not ideal. So what's the reason for all this load time? Well, we have 3 of these images that are especially large. Feed the Hungry, Shelter the Homeless, and Burl Cane Cropped. Now, normally the reason why images are large is because they have a large number of pixels. And then we see with images like this, though, that that's not the case. And so we save this, and then we check it out, and we can see that this is only 900 wide by 849 high, and that should be a very small image, but it's a 300 dpi image, and that adds to the size. What's more is that in some way this has been saved through a less than ideal method. I don't know exactly what method you all are using for saving your images and then putting them online, but it should be that you're going through and saving them for the web. You can either go export, save for the web, or if you have a newer version like mine here, then let's see, what's the new way to do that? Oh, I can't even find where it is now. Well, anyway, you can go to save for web, and that's probably the version you're using anyway. You probably are on one of the older versions of Photoshop than what this is. So if we go over here, you'll notice if we go to just save a JPEG, we can even make the quality pretty high. Even if we make it at its very highest, even then we're at a much smaller file size than what we were over here. See, that same image here was 1.5, and I'm saving it at the best quality that I can save it, and then I'm still at 1/3 of the size of what that is. So ideally, you knock it down just a little bit because it really isn't going to make a difference on an image like this. It's already imperfect. And so then we get it down to 325, and we have a new Feed the Hungry. And now I'm going to go back in there and I'm going to go ahead and change that out. And if you do that on all of your images and you're sure that you use the best images on those, it's going to increase the number of articles that are read. There are plenty of people that will come to your site and will leave very quickly on the basis of a slow loading site. Now, it's not too big of a deal if you end up getting a time of 5.41 seconds. But what if someone has a slow internet connection? That can turn into 15 or 20 seconds, and that's not the sort of time that people will stick around for. I don't know, did you have a caption? No, you didn't add the caption on there. So we'll just set the featured image, and we'll update it. And then if we run the same test again, we should see a smaller page size and a little bit faster load time. Yep, so now we're down to 5 megabytes and 4.76 seconds. It really does make a difference, and we do that with every one. Pretty soon we're down to much better size, and it's going to help out on our server load as well, so we would appreciate it as well. It's just a good step to take. Our server's loading things up pretty quickly, but if you have large files, it's still going to take time for it to be downloaded through most people's internet. So, good idea to make sure that you're saving images in the right way. It's not about the number of pixels that you have going on right now. It's making sure that you have down to 72 dpi, and if you save them for the web, like we did over here, then that's just going to take care of it anyway, and you'll be fine then. But that's not really the main focus of this, but I did want to go over it real quickly just to be sure that we're getting the most out of this new website. If you select all those different categories, they'll show up in the right places here on the home page. Everything will be fine. Now for the baptisms, it's a little bit different. Let's go ahead and make this a bit bigger so we can focus on that. I didn't create this baptisms component of this, but I'll go ahead and go through it anyway just to be sure that you know how to use it. Hopefully your in-house person who made this has already taken you through this, but if not, then we will here. You should add a title for the baptism that is a reasonable name, like the name of the person who is being baptized, so baptism name, but you don't have to have it be something relevant like that. It's just easier to go back and find it that way. You can ignore the stuff at the top. You can even make it go away. Anytime you have things you don't want to see on one of these things, anywhere else on a post, a page, anything, as you're editing it, then you can just uncheck it, and from then on, then those things will not be a part of what shows up on your page. Once you click publish on this, then that'll make it so every time you load again, then it won't be there. But you don't have to. You can also just skip over it. And so we have a participant name, and you type in the name. If they have a Twitter profile, then you can type it in here. And so we're not going to be typing in like at nbcpathway.com or nbcpathway, something like that, whatever we are. Whatever I am, and I don't know what you are at all. So at baptistmessage or something like that, I imagine you have. Instead, it's going to be just like it says down here underneath, twitter.com/baptistmessage. You put that in there. Church name is required. It's letting us know that. And so then you can type in church name, and you can choose out the date on which it happened, the pastor name, and you can add a pastor's Twitter if you want to, or you can just leave it blank. If there's a video, then you can insert the link for it here. And once you get all those things, then you need to set a featured image. And you can set whatever featured image you need to set of the baptism or whatever else. And now that's set. And then you click publish. And when you click publish, that's all you need to do. It's going to show up automatically up here in the corner. And it will keep the most recent baptisms going on up there. I don't recall precisely how many it is right off, but you get several at a time. I suppose it'd be under slider revolution. But if you ever want to change that number, then you can. It's not a big deal to be able to switch it out, but it's only going to be a few that you're going to have people ever actually seeing anyway. And so we have this here, the settings for baptisms, and 15. It's set up to 15, so that should be plenty. Most recent baptisms will continue to show up there. And we also have within our sliders the home page. That should be this over here. And it's already set up to show things as it should be. We got the title on here, and then this in the background is showing that it's just going to take the featured image from those posts. If we look at the slider settings, we can see that right now it's set to having 5 of the stories that you have set to being on carousel, and then they will all show up in that spot right there. And that is most of what you need to know for these things. As long as you can understand what those categories are doing, then you should be okay. I'm going to send you a list of the categories so that you can know what each one of them does. That's going to be a better reference point in this video, because of course you won't want to watch this video again and again to remember what each category does. We went over the different sizes for these ads, and I can send those to you again just to make sure that we don't lose track of those. Otherwise, I think we have most everything covered. We did talk briefly earlier today about this idea of being able to go in and just make a quick change within a certain set of things. For the most part, you might as well just keep things where they are. You don't have to get rid of them to make new space for new ones. It's just going to take the most recent ones. But if you ever want to go through, you can go in and you can do a quick edit here, and you can uncheck something, but you can also select several like this, and then you can do a bulk action of editing those things too, and you can add or subtract something, and then they will lose that. That's another way to approach that if you really just don't want something to continue to have that old category. For the most part, you don't really need to be removing categories. It's really just add in new content and it will replace the old content, and you should be good to go. Of course, if you have something that is no longer part of that category, you realize you're wrong about something, you shouldn't have been a part of that category in the first place, then that might make sense to take it away then. But otherwise, just keep on replacing it, and then that way, when people come in and look at all the facts, figures, and finds, then they can see that there's a nice long list. And there we go. That's the new website. And if you all have any questions about how to use those components, be sure to let me know, and or rather let us know. Emailing or texting David is a lot of times a better option, but we will get back to you as soon as we can.